In this short training video, I'm going to teach you what the after repaired value is, how to calculate it, and why you even need to know it, especially if you're wholesaling or rehabbing. All coming up in this training. So let's get started with my 5 golden rules to determine the after repaired value. Rule number 1. Sounds simple. Establish the property value. So the importance of a good repaired value cannot be stressed enough. Before you can make an intelligent offer, you must have a very good idea of how much you could resell, rent, or option the property for. As the old saying goes, you make your money when you buy and you realize your profit when you sell. One of the most important things to understand is the difference between fair market value versus after repaired value. Fair market value is what someone will pay for the property in its current condition, with no repairs done to it at all. The after repaired value is what someone will pay for the property after it's fixed up completely, all repairs made in a ready move-in condition. Now, the after repaired value is the most important number there is in real estate. The entire offer analysis is dependent upon this one number, especially if you're wholesaling or rehabbing. The after repaired value is not only used to calculate your offer, but banks, hard money, and private financing use the ARV to determine loan amounts. Let me give you an example. If your ARV is $250,000 and your financing institution loans 65% of the ARV, then you will receive a check for $162,500 to purchase it. Now, each hard money, private money, and banks do it a little bit different. You may not get 65%. Some will do 100%. Some will do 75%. So you want to reach out to these different financing institutions and find out exactly what they do. You could simply Google hard money lending on Google, find out who's local and who deals with investors, and get a packet from them. Now, there are 4 ways to determine the ARV. The first way is the best way, and that's to actually get an appraisal. The next best way is to use what we call comparable sales, or abbreviated as comps. The third way is computer-generated model. So as you can see, it's good, better, and best. And last but not least are current listings, which at the end of the day are not very reliable. It really doesn't matter if the house is for sale because it actually hasn't sold. You could ask $1 million for a property. It doesn't mean that it's actually going to sell for $1 million. So current listings are not necessarily reliable. But what happens if you're in an area, maybe a rural area, where properties just don't sell that often? This might be, one of the ways that you'll have to look at. Now, I'm going to review the first 3 because these are going to be the most popular ways to actually generate these comps. So the first way is an appraisal. Now, this is going to be the most reliable source for after repaired value, what that property could sell for. Now, appraisals are done by experts in the real estate field and encompass all the variables that might exist. Appraisers take into account the area, construction of the subject property, and the appreciating or depreciating factors such as other properties that have sold recently in the area. You should call several appraisers, check out the cost for an appraisal. Now, want to give you a good heads up here. You will only use an appraiser when purchasing properties. Otherwise, this would be very expensive. So before we actually make an offer, because in order to make an offer, you're going to have to figure out the ARV first. We're not going to have appraisers come in and spend $300 to $500 for every time that we want to generate an offer, because what happens if the seller says no, right? So that's where an appraisal would be great. Once you've solidified the contract, you could always have an appraiser come in and give you that ballpark number. The next really most common way is what we call comparable sales. So comparable sales are properties that have sold and are comparable to your subject property. You can access this information through a local real estate agent or any software that provides these numbers. And of course, I use the REIPro software because not only does it have all the MLS, which stands for multiple listing service, sold prices, but all the for sale by owner sales. So you really get the best of both worlds. Next is what we call the computer-generated model. As with all computer-generated values, the estimated value is just that. It's an estimated value only. Automated valuations can never be as precise and should not take the place of running true comparable sales where the conditions, the finishes of the home, particulars of the neighborhood and area market conditions can be taken in consideration. So just look at estimated values, serve as a first glance or ballpark number for investors. Now, generally, we wouldn't just use a generated model of an estimated value. We would just go and get comparable sales or go to a real estate agent and pull properties that have sold off the MLS. Now, what happens again if you're in an area that you just don't have an agent or you don't have a software that actually provides these comps for you? This is going to have to be an estimated value. Again, it's not the most reliable, but again, if you're in that area where you don't have access to the information, this would be the next way to do it. Rule number 2, use similar properties that have sold. That is really the key point. Again, it doesn't matter if a house is for sale, it hasn't sold. So we really have to look at these sold prices. Now, there's a lot of different things that you want to look for these properties that have sold. Number 1 is the property type. Is this a single family home, condo, mobile home? You just want to make sure that the property type is similar to the subject property. Next is a sold date. So when did these properties actually sell? I like to go back no more than 6 months. The market was different 12 months ago and 2 years ago. So you want to take the most recent ones. Again, you may run into that situation where maybe there hasn't been a property that's nearby that has sold within 6 months. Could you go back 9? Sure, you could go back 9. Again, I think our first goal here is to try to find these properties within that 6-month range. I'm going to put bedrooms and baths together. Obviously, you want to, it needs to be similar. A 4-2 is not the same as a 2-1, right? So you want to find those properties that have similar bedrooms and bathrooms. Next is square feet. So you want to stick with properties within a couple hundred feet if possible. I think, this is one of the most important factors when determining the best sold properties. So you want to get that square feet within a couple of hundred if at all possible. Are the layouts similar? You could have a single story versus a 2-story. Those are really 2 different properties, and just the flow of the property could be completely different. So generally when you're in just a normal neighborhood, most of the layouts are going to be similar. You might go left to go to the kitchen, you might go right to go to the kitchen in others, but generally speaking, they have a very similar layout. Next is year built. Obviously, you can remodel a 1940 home to make it look like it was built in 2021. But most homes aren't. So I want you to stay within the same time frame. Next is distance. So how far away are these homes that sold? You really want to stay within a mile and if not closer, right? So, same neighborhood down the street would be ideal, or the next door neighbor would be ideal. But again, you don't want to take properties that are 2-3 miles away from this subject property because those properties could be a lot different. Kind of flows into the same neighborhood, right? So this is kind of the same thing. We want to stay within that same neighborhood, and because you'll see neighborhoods that will completely change across the street. So you could have one neighborhood that is completely different than the one across the street. You could have a neighborhood built in the 70s and then a neighborhood across the street that was built in the 2000s. Completely different style homes. Maybe they're more expensive. So those really wouldn't be comparable. So we want to definitely check similar neighborhoods. Next is the property condition. This is really important because you're trying to find homes that are, already fixed up and in great condition. You can generally go to places like Zillow to see pictures of the property when it's sold. So just verify the condition of the property, because if you find a property that maybe it was a distressed sale, that wouldn't necessarily be a really good comp to use in your analysis, because you're really trying to find out what that after repaired value would be once it's completely fixed up. Special features such as one home has a pool or a fenced-in yard or an extra detached garage. All of these need to be taken into consideration when determining the best comparable sales. And schools, yes, schools are very important to families, so I would make this one of your priorities. Now, there are many other factors, but these are going to be the big ones. Rule number 3, and that is use a minimum of 4 comps. So you're going to reach a better after repaired value by taking at least 4 properties that have sold. Because in real estate, you must take the average. Using one comp may skew the numbers. It could cost you thousands of dollars. Now, there will be times where you may not be able to get 4 comps, like in a rural area. Don't be alarmed. You can always reach out to a local real estate agent that can help you understand the values in those particular areas. Now, what I like to do is just create a short form like this. You can put it in an Excel spreadsheet or a Word document. If you're just getting started, this is going to help you tremendously. So you can see I went ahead and put 4 comps on there. And then I'm going to put the property address, the date sold, the square feet, all of this good information in here to help me determine what the ARV is, the after repaired value. I'm going to teach you how to do it manually. And rule number 4, cost per square foot. This is by far the most important number in real estate. It's what each square foot has sold for. Okay, now that cost per square foot will vary depending on the property, the amenities, the features, and so on. And that's why we take multiple different comps. So here you could see that I have 4 comps. I've taken the sold price, I've taken the square feet, I've divided those numbers to give me the cost per square foot sold. I'm going to do this 4 times. Now, once I have these numbers, I'm now going to add all of these comps together, the cost per square foot sold, which gives me $541.09. I'm going to take that number and I'm going to divide it by the number of comps to give me that average cost, which in this example is $135.27. Next, I'm going to take that number and multiply by the total square feet of my subject property that I'm looking to make an offer on. Once I do that, it's going to give me a number of $253,631. This is your after repaired value number. So I'm going to take this number and now I'm going to take out my repair cost, all my expenses, any potential profits to actually give me what can I actually offer the seller. So again, your whole offer is dependent upon this one number. Now, it doesn't matter if you're a few dollars here, off. What you don't want to be is 50,000 off, right? You don't want to be 30,000 off because that's going to totally lose you money, or it could potentially make you a lot of money depending on which way you go with this. But again, this number is very simple to calculate. Again, REIPro can automatically calculate all this for you, but I wanted to show you how to do it manually. And I think you understand, you learn it better exactly what's going on behind the scenes when people say, hey, this is the ARV. And rule number 5, don't make this mistake because I've seen it so many times. You should never take the highest cost per square foot sold and use that to determine your ARV. You must average these numbers out. So in real estate, if you look at this very, very simple example here, if you were to just think of a neighborhood and just take one street, and you're going to have tons of houses on one street. You're going to have some small houses, some big houses. And what's happening is the big house is actually increasing the value of the small house while the small house is decreasing the value of the big house, trying to come to this medium price. Okay, so what investors make a big mistake doing is they'll find the small houses and take that cost per square foot sold, because that cost per square foot sold is going to be much higher than a larger house down the street. Now, taking in consideration all the amenities, features, and things of that nature are similar here. It's just the size of the house is different. And what's going to happen is that if you just take these high cost per square foot sold properties, which generally are the smallest houses, and you purchase a bigger house and you multiply that number, your value is going to be much higher than what the market will support. And this is just a huge mistake that a lot of investors, I think we get in and say, hey, we want to make this value as high as possible. We have to be within reason. Real estate has to be averaged out to the medium. Okay, what is that middle price? Okay, bedrooms, amenities, features, location, things of those factors are going to increase the value, but we have to average it out. Okay. You're not going to have a house that sold for $100 per square foot and the next door neighbor sells for $800 per square foot. That's just not normal. Okay. So we have to find that middle ground. Thanks for watching. And if you learned something valuable, please give us a thumbs up. And if you have a question or comment, I'd be happy to answer it.